All right, we have a new report coming out of MP First on Marvel's Wolverine. Details about the Venom project and all sorts of stuff. Now, as we'll see when we go through this, a lot of this stuff that we're going to talk about goes back to a big leak that hit Insomniac back in late 2023. Basically, a group of hackers got access to a ton of data within the company, and it wasn't just like screenshots or concept art. It also included things like company information on employees, like social security numbers, home addresses, phone numbers, stuff like that. Major leak. Like, this was not just, ooh, I got some clips of in development footage. This was significant. Okay. So when it happened, it was really, really tough to talk about because it also included a lot of personal information of people that had nothing to do with anything other than working at the company. Since then, it's been sifted out, and there's some interesting little tidbits. There's some outlines on, like, they also had presentations and like slideshows that were used when doing pitch meetings and stuff for PlayStation. So it like includes information on like budgets and stuff like that, and also just general timelines and stuff. So you can see people broke this down, where there were slides including information on a potential Spider-Man multiplayer game that was in development that eventually got canceled. Spider-Man 2, Venom game was slated for late 2025. Wolverine was slated for late 26. Spider-Man 3 for late 28. Ratchet and Clank, another one, late 29. X-Men, some sort of project in 2030, and then a brand new IP in the later period in 2031 to 2032, which is how this has to work. I mean, you have to... I clicked forward and then it took me to a different page. What is happening? What is this? Okay, hold on. We'll open it again. We'll do it live. Okay. Yeah, Venom, all of this stuff. They have a rough breakdown of what they expect it to be. 8 to 10 hours, a little bit smaller. The Great Web. They have other things like this. Early concept art for the next Ratchet and Clank game. Okay. X-Men license terms. So information on what they expect that to look like. And this was one of the interesting things. So PlayStation, console, and PC. And these are the things that I find interesting because it's like business data on breakdowns of budgets and stuff. So commitments on the X-Men licensing terms, $621 million comprised of, so this is the deal that they made, $120 million development commitment for each required title, another $120 million in the aggregate for the provisional fourth title. So they're anticipating $120 million development budgets on each of these games. $30 million marketing commitment for each required title, another $15 million for the fourth. So $30 million marketing. So we're up to $150 million budget for each of these games. $9 million recoupable advance for each required title, another $9 million in the aggregate for the provisional. Okay. So they get $9 million cash upfront for it. Release all games by 2035, sell all games through at least 2038, and if later Marvel allows us to, if Marvel allows us to continue. So literally, if Marvel tells them you can't sell our game after 2038, like let's say there's a big scandal or something, Marvel can just tell them, nope, you have to delist it, and they can take it off. Just gone. Between now and December 31st, 2035, Marvel cannot release or announce any X-Men games on console, PC streaming, or use X-Men character as a competitive advantage in a game, such as play as Wolverine and Ultimate Alliance exclusively on Xbox. So they locked down that exclusivity. Interesting. X-Men characters can appear in multi-family Marvel games such as Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, and Marvel retains rights to children's games and certain X-Men games from the 90s, but they cannot release or announce these games within 45 days before or after release or announce of any of our X-Men games. Digital games, also, this is the royalty. So in addition to all of that, licensing deals, okay, this is the licensing deal for the royalties. Marvel will take 9 to 18% of net sales on digital. 9 to 18%. On the case of physical games, or in the case of physical games, 19 to 26% of net sales. DLC, they'll take 19 to 26% of net sales. Hardware bundles, 35% to 50% of wholesale bundle price. Calculated as follows: number of units times wholesale bundle price times applicable royalty rate for bundle times applicable royalty rate for the game. And then termination, neither party has the right to terminate the agreement for convenience. However, if we do not sell through at least 6 million units on PS5 and PC combined of one of the 3 major titles in the first year of its PlayStation console release, either party may terminate the agreement. If we terminate, we must pay Marvel $9 million breakup fee plus all unpaid portions of all guarantees. If Marvel terminates, the foregoing fees are waived. The result is that we would not develop any further titles under this agreement, but we can continue to sell all those titles released before termination. So they can break up for $9 million if they don't sell 6 million copies of any single one of these X-Men games. They sell 5 million, either one of them can break up. So this is why people are like, oh, why doesn't Larian just go and like sign a deal for like Lord of the Rings or something? This is why. Because like you have to deal with this stuff. Okay. Like this is what you have to deal with. Absolute nightmare. You're giving up, in that case, as you saw, like anywhere from 9 to 26% of net sales. You're also giving up tons of money when it comes to like the commitments on budget and marketing and everything. It's very expensive, very, very expensive, but they're doubling down on it being a big deal. Putting a lot of eggs in this basket. So as they continue though, but let's look at this specific article, because this article is from 2023, breaking down some of those leaks and the leaked information. As part of those leaks, we also got access to information about the Wolverine game. We got some early dev footage of it and some story beats and things like that. Ideas of how long they were going to be, scope, scale, budgets, all that. And it looks like, honestly, most of Insomniac's projects moving forward are going to be targeting that like 8 to 12 hour range. They're all going to be a good bit shorter. They're not going to be trying to do like a 30, 40 hour game with each of these. They are trying to do something higher production value, more cinematic, bigger budget, set pieces, but shorter overall experience. And that's one of the things that was also borne out in the leaks as well. As they say, almost 2 years have passed since Insomniac suffered one of the biggest security breaches to occur in the games industry. The leak exposed a massive amount of information on various projects in development, including an early build of the previously announced Wolverine and the studio's full release schedule, which included several new titles like Ratchet & Clank games, Spider-Man spin-off centered on Venom. Shortly after the incident, they released a statement confirming that the development of Wolverine would continue as planned. However, this was followed by a period of radio silence that only fueled uncertainty among fans, raising doubts about the current state of several release titles seen in the leaks. Honestly, I never really understood the concerns for cancellation. I remember when the leaks first happened, people would come in a chat and be like, are they going to cancel Wolverine? And that never made sense to me. People are excited about Wolverine. A leak happens that shows some early footage of it and stuff, so they would scrap it all. Like, I just don't understand why they would do that. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand. But either way, they continue. As some may know, at least one project from this leaked roadmap has already been scrapped. The 3 planned DLCs for Spider-Man 2. These were centered on the villains Carnage and Beetle, with a third intended to tie in with the movie Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Nonetheless, with the launch of the game's PC port, Insomniac officially declared they had no intention of releasing additional content because I think it wasn't performing quite where they wanted it to. This clear movement happening behind the scenes made us wonder about the current state of projects like Wolverine and Venom, but fortunately we've received updates on both. Someone familiar with the situation has confirmed to us that Wolverine will stick to the 2026 release schedule that has been seen in the leaks, and that Venom project remains in development. Additionally, we have also managed to gather some extra details about Venom based on the information that we've come across. Okay, so they've said that both are still happening. And by the way, MP First, they have a pretty good track record, so this is not like coming from nowhere. The most important information we received from our main source is that Wolverine is still on track for a 2026 release, and Venom has been in active development. While we haven't been able to determine how advanced the Venom project is, if we assume that Wolverine remains priority, it's likely that that game is still in pre-production. There are also some details from the story that we got from a different source, but since we couldn't verify these, we recommend that you take these tidbits with a grain of salt. And I'm not too concerned about story spoilers, so I'm just going to skip that. They go on about different possible inclusions, you know, Peter Parker's struggle with Venom, Eddie Brock, and all of that. But they also say, as a final note, we've also come across some clues that suggest that Insomniac is currently working to include Miguel O'Hara, as also known as Spider-Man 2099, in one of their projects. While we don't know if this will be Venom, it's more likely that this is related to Spider-Man 3. As some may remember, the multiverse was hinted at through a mission in the last game of the series as a tie-in to the Spider-Verse movies. A simple nod, but the leaked canceled DLC did indicate that this would be expanded on more. With it canceled, this most likely now will lead into a different storyline, or at least another tie-in mission. Yeah, which would make sense. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that. So when can we expect it to be released? Well, their plans from 2023 show changes, showed that they were initially targeting Venom for this year, but that's obviously changed. It was originally planned to release at the end of this year, but the most recent data from the leaks placed it in 2027. We now assume that this data depends on whether the project has undergone significant changes in scale, considering what was leaked was comparable in size to the Miles Morales game. My guess is it's probably 26, or rather 27, going into 28. It'll be just like Miles Morales was, maybe a cross-generational game. It'll be one of those games that's like smaller in scale, but it's easier for them to ramp up and scale up. So like we can see, ooh, it runs like this on the PS5. It runs like this on the PlayStation 6. Wow. And then they'll come out with the next Spider-Man 3 as a next-gen game that's like a standalone thing, which makes sense to me. And then right after Spider-Man 3, they'll work on the X-Men game, and that'll be like the big thing for the early 2030s. And it'll be their first game built from the ground up entirely, probably for X-Men. Because I'm guessing that Spider-Man 3 will probably be cross-generational. It'll also run on PS5. That would be my suspicion with how they've done it, frankly. But having said that, it looks like it's still happening. Of course, timelines have changed and shifted, but the Venom game probably still coming as more of a Miles Morales scale, maybe at like $50, $60 more likely. And that'll come in like 2027, but 2026 we get Wolverine, and that is like the big PlayStation game for next fall. That would be my guess. And then in the spring, PlayStation will focus on the live service stuff. They might have a single player game in the form of like that God of War spin-off Metroidvania style 2.5D game. We might get that in the spring, but I'm not sure if they will try to frame that as like their big spring release. They might try to do that with like, I don't know, maybe the Horizon game, maybe Marathon is that game. Fair Game $, maybe, but dude, after hearing that the like game director, creative director dude left, I don't have any secret information, but I just would be shocked if Fair Games is still a thing, you know? Like, I don't know how many games have their director leave that still end up coming out. Like, it's just, I don't know, maybe they found some way to save it that we just don't know about, but yeah, who knows? But either way, looks like Venom is still happening. Things have changed, timelines have shifted, but it's still happening. And it also looks like Insomniac is going all in on the Marvel deals, and they're going to spend a lot of money on those projects. In general, though, I think that their scale and budgets and things are going to shift a little bit. I think they're going to go for shorter games. Like I said, I think the norm is going to shift down to like 10 to 12 hours, probably for most games that are coming out of Insomniac, at least. And they're just going to lean into like bigger productions, because I think they realized with Spider-Man 2 that they can't do a $300 million game again. It just doesn't work. You got to get the budgets down. And so they're going to do that by decreasing the scale, you know, because ultimately there's only so many levers you can adjust in game development. Like either you have, if you want to decrease costs, you either like pay your devs less, or, you know, you get your development costs lower by having less developers or paying the same number of developers less. You can decrease the scale, so the amount of work that they need to do. And you could do that maybe with like AI enhancements, and you can do things with new tools. You could switch to Unreal Engine, because then you just don't need to optimize your game at all, apparently. Things like that. You can decrease the marketing spend and budget and do things like that. But ultimately, like, there's only so many things you can do to decrease the overall budget of your game. And it seems like decreasing the scale is the most obvious one, while also decreasing spend elsewhere. But ultimately, just making your game half the size is a lot cheaper. It's a lot cheaper. And that seems to be what they're doing. He took my thing.